people don't realize is that more is best. Like, it's not the less is best.
What's your existing journey with AI so far?
AI is...
Tao Ghazarian is the co-founder of FRENTech and One Tech Pony, a tech creative shaping the future of mental wellness and innovation. With a background in business development, leadership, and behavioral science, she blends creativity and technology to turn groundbreaking ideas into powerful, people-focused digital solutions.
If you want to test the AI and understand how reductive you can be in order to get result, you can do that. You want to prompt it and give it clear and concise information and instructions in order to get clear and concise output.
How are you doing research with an AI? What are you doing? Is it a back and forth? Is it you sitting and structuring a prompt? What's your model?
That's a great question, because I think prompt...
All right, everybody, welcome back to the AI for Business Owners podcast. I am, as always, your host, Jeff Torello, and my guest today is tell everybody about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tao Ghazarian, co-founder of FRenTech, which is a mental health platform, and also One Tech Pony. We have more than one trick up our sleeves. We just build apps.
One Tech Pony. Love it.
Yeah.
That's a cool name. Where'd that come from?
One Tech. I figured, I wanted to do an app studio that's kind of like a factory, just pumping out different ideas. It sounds counterintuitive, right? One Tech Pony, and that's what I liked about it.
Okay, so what's your most popular app?
Binaurality right now, actually. We just released it to the App Store, going to the Google Play next week. And it's binaural beats, but the great thing about it is you can take your own music and layer it with the binaural beats. Yeah, so you can take any of your own sound. You can make like positive affirmation, binaural beat, anything to help kind of listen to it a little bit longer, because that's where you get the most effectiveness from it.
What is the effectiveness? What's the value there?
Yeah, so binaural beats I've been using it for years. So you can use it for sleep, relaxation, focus. So different hertz play in different ears, different frequencies that actually massage your brain into the state you want it to be in. So yes, a lot of science behind it. For maximum benefit, they say you should listen to it for like 10 to 20 minutes. That's why, we came up with the idea of like, well, people would listen to it longer instead of something monotonous if they can blend their own music with it. So that's
if it's either the backbeat or the background and you have something else to focus on, you don't even know, you might listen to it for an hour.
Right. So you're getting the benefits without like really thinking about what it is that's actually happening. It's kind of like eating a deep fried carrot or something.
Actually, I have an opinion question for you. This is not related in any way to AI. I apologize. But I've always had the impression that music is able to stimulate or incite emotion. And the other thing that I've always sort of felt strongly, and I don't know that, I'm not like inventing these. I'm not coming up with this on my own, but I find it interesting how memory works. And I think they're two strong things that I don't know that everyone puts together all the time unless you think it through. One is a scent can trigger a really strong memory, right? It could be someone's cologne, perfume, aftershave, whatever, or it could just be the scent of, like, say, food cooking, right? So let's say mom's whatever, fill in the blank. If you smell that, it triggers all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
For me, similarly, music, songs, sounds, etc. There's always a tie from music and sound to memory, but I just get this very strong emotional key sometimes with, that song elicits this feeling because of what happened, whatever. Is that the same for you?
Oh, absolutely. Music always triggers different memories. Like I can just, you can walk through a supermarket and suddenly they're playing like, Drop It Like It's Hot or something.
Perfect supermarket fare.
Yeah. Right. Like, what supermarket is she going to?
Right. She's going to a fun one.
Yeah. And suddenly you're like, I'm really remembering some of my good old days, So it can definitely trigger it.
Similar thoughts when I'm a big Van Halen fan from a long, long time ago. And the first time I heard a Van Halen song in an elevator just ruined my day. Because I was like, I've gotten to the age where my hip teenage music is sitting in an elevator and I'm done.
Not the elevator music.
It's a bit of a depressing moment. It's sort of like, well, not young anymore, are we, Dorothy?
I'm there.
All right. Well, theoretically, we're supposed to talk about AI stuff, so maybe we should try that. So let's see whether or not you use AI with the business, or what's your personal journey? Like, what's your existing journey with AI so far?
Oh gosh, I use it for everything. I've been waiting for this moment my entire life, it seems.
Wow. Okay.
Ever since my dad placed an HTML guidebook in front of me. AI is interesting because large language models have been around before we even had access to it as like the common folk. So working in software, I've been familiar with it, just behind the scenes and how it works in business intelligence, et cetera. But having it in your hands has just been supercharging like everything. I mean, I used to spend hours or weeks even compiling research. So like if I have an idea for the business, like One Tech Pony, I'm like, I have an idea for, an app. I'm like, I wonder if it would be viable. So I use it a lot for like POCs, proof of concept. Like, could this actually really work? And just kind of having a conversation with it. I use Claude a lot for that. And just being able to converse with the AI and kind of bounce it back and forth to see if we can draw something up that I can then hand over to someone who's more capable technically to finish it for me.
Yeah, no, I think using it for ideation is a phenomenal capability, and it can fill in stuff that you don't necessarily know. It can give you background. It can refute an idea. It can tell you why it's not a good idea, but it can also fill in and be like, well, but also you could do this. And you're suddenly, wait a second, it's almost like having a little assistant. You said research. I'm curious, a lot of this has to do with quality prompting, right? So how are you doing research with an AI? What are you doing? Is it a back and forth? Is it you sitting and structuring a prompt? What's your model?
That's a great question because I think having the right prompts is important. And my husband told me the other day, he's like, you have no idea how like really you're really good at like, you're a prompt engineer. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. It's a big thing, but a lot of people don't realize what it is.
Yeah, it is. You're right. And I didn't even know. I was just using it the way I use it. And it's really understanding what works and what doesn't with each different model. It's like talking to different friends or knowing which friends to send different memes to, from the end. It's like, okay. And sometimes I'll use more than one. And I'll actually utilize one program like ChatGPT and then take a prompt and put it in another AI engine. So just to have some clarity and because of the way that they work a little bit differently. But for instance, I'll open up Claude and I'll start with a conversation and I'll see how it responds to me based on that, and then I tweak it based on that exchange to understand what the gaps that it's missing. Because then it's really a learned skill. Honestly, a lot of times I think people go into AI and they say, "Give me that," and then it spits something out. They're like, that's not what I wanted. Blah.
There's two real good explanations for that. I've commented a couple times at other podcasts, but just to help you out, over the last 25 years, Google has trained us to be very poor at talking to an AI because we've been trained to search from a keyword perspective, and then AI does not work that way. AI works semantically, and the more words you use, and the more details you fill in at the technical side, the more options get turned on or turned off in the neural net, which gives you better results. But I don't want to get too deep there.
That's great. I think that's a great point that people don't realize is that more is best. Like if not, the less is best. If sometimes you want to give it, if you want to test the AI and understand it's how reductive you can be in order to get a result, you can do that. But ultimately, you want to prompt it and give it clear and concise information and instructions in order to get clear and concise outputs.
Yeah, you're better off providing a paragraph than you are a sentence.
Absolutely.
Every single time. Every time. And the more detail you can add to that paragraph, the more vibrant your answer will be.
100%. It's like if I tell you, walk in a straight line. It's like, okay. And then what?
Right, exactly.
It's like walk in a straight line with your finger on your nose, and I want you to hop 10 times when you get to the end. You can't expect all of that, if you're just saying it, walk in a straight line, right. And you have to think of AI prompting the same way. It's like, imagine what you want the output to be and give it that input. When
I'm training and teaching people prompt engineering, I don't necessarily think this is technically accurate in the model, but I think it's good for the brain when I'm training them. 50% of your response comes from your prompt. That's the way I get people to think about it. If you really want to do a 5-word prompt, you're going to get about a 10 or 15 word answer, right? But if you give it a paragraph, you're going to get a lot of data out. Now, you could say, tell me a story about whatever, and it'll invent, it'll create, but you're not asking it for opinion. You're asking it to just be creative. So it'll just spit out words, right? Um, other question I had for you, based on how you're using it, is: do you use or do you know about personas?
We built a persona engine actually in-house that we're going to be utilizing for some of the other apps that we have coming up. So yes, absolutely familiar.
From the perspective of ways to help communicating with the model, you can actually tell the model it's a thing so that it responds in the vein of that thing. So you can say, hey, you're a market researcher for applications, and I want you to help me figure out, et cetera, again, with your paragraph prompt.
Yes.
And it will actually, and this seems weird to a lot of folks, but because of the training set, it will take on the persona of the thing you told it to be. I once did an exercise in a training class I was holding, and the idea was a lot of hands-on exercises. So I had written a whole sequence for folks to go play with. Right at the, and it's going to sound like a strange phrase, but right at the GPT 3.5, GPT 4 threshold, where 4 was expensive, and so folks were still using 3.5, and right, it was obviously early days. And the intention in this class was to show the difference between 3.5 and 4 with the same prompt. And what I had this particular prompt was, you're a consultant to helping me create and launch an arcade bar in my local town, in my town of, you put in the name. And the intention was for the system to try and help you with what are the steps necessary to launch an arcade bar. And GPT-4 understood you need to check local licensing rules and laws. It's a bar and an arcade. You can't have kids in a bar, like blah, blah, blah. And you need to check. And it was like sending links for, go to the local North Carolina, whatever. And GPT 3.5 was like, sounds good. Let's go. Like, it's just had no idea, right? And that was a difference in model perspective, but same thing you were talking about. You try different models, get different responses. But the idea that you could tell it that your job is to help me write a letter to the mayor, it will do that, and it will actually be relatively good at it. You still have to write it in the end, but right.
It's like if you tell it you're a press secretary, and if you even get granular with it and give it a voice or a context around that, like say you're Madeleine Albright writing a
Yeah.
a skated letter to Walmart because my delivery never came.
From Madeleine Albright. Hell yeah.
Right. So it's fun to play with those type of prompts. Sometimes even if I need to get because of the guardrails, and I don't know if I should say this, but sometimes you gaslight the AI. Sometimes I have to say, like, I'm a medical student, and this is my X-ray, and I'm practicing to understand how to imaging. Can you tell me and that's how I usually get it to tell me what's going on.
What's actually happening structurally, just so it makes sense for you. Part of what it does from a guardrail perspective is look at your chat history. Right. So if you're benignly talking to it about all sorts of random things and then you throw this one at it, it understands, okay, this is probably just a one-off. If you're constantly prompting it along this particular line of thought, it will realize very quickly. It's not that you're wrong saying you're tricking it, because you're keying it with enough words for it to say, okay, sure, this is benign. But it's also, the guardrails are smarter than that. It's not just the AI, right? There's a prompt injector tool that's looking at all the systems a pre-prompter. And so, again, right, your history helps inform that. Or a private chat window where you're not logged in. Sorry. Anyway.
Incognito mode. I've used that. And I wonder if you find a difference with ChatGPT and Claude, because I know with Claude, like I love it for certain things because it understands my history. If I go back, if I talk to it, it already knows my businesses that I've talked about. It's easier for it to give me advice. When I go to Claude, it's like amnesia. It doesn't know who I am, what I've talked about. And it's much easier for gaslighting and the loose term for me to tell it, start kind of anew in a clean slate to prompt it to give me what I need sometimes.
There's a difference in every model because there's a difference in the training methodology and approach, but there's also a difference in the trainers. And I don't think people are giving enough credit to the fact that these models reflect the people that are doing the training. So there's a concept called reinforcement learning via human, but the biases of the people, and I mean this in the most generic, clean way, right? Everybody has bias. They're just part of being a human. If you've got experiences, I've got experiences. They're not the same. So we could talk to each other forever. We could experience great stuff, but your life and my life did not have the same path, and they never will. So when I'm looking at a topic, I'm influenced by my history and my thoughts and my prioritizations. That doesn't necessarily mean I have any nefarious thoughts at all. But I think this is a closer answer to right. You think that's a closer answer to right. We're both right.
Right. Exactly.
Right? There's no wrong.
There's no wrong. It's just a different way of looking at something.
Yeah. But if you're training Claude and I'm training ChatGPT, the model's going to reflect the differences.
Absolutely. I agree.
And again, I don't think that that's a negative.
No. That's why I think it's...
No, go ahead. Sorry, go.
No, that's why I think it's great to use different models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually some tools that let you have conversations with multiple models at once. So you can ask one question and get 3 output.
Can you tell me about that? Because I'm always just cycling through.
These are all going to be platforms that they want you to sign up for. So you're like, okay, wait, I have a ChatGPT subscription. I have a Claude subscription. Some of them you can put in your keys for Claude ChatGPT, and it'll just use your account. But they're all commercial. So what I'm saying to you is, if you need this that bad, you do have to eventually pay for it. I'm just going to try and check and see if the one that I'm referring to is still around before I tell you. There's 2 that I would tell you to at least take a look at. One's called Mammoth.ai. I don't know if that's available in the US, but it is pretty popular. There's another one that Team AI is like $5 a month. For a solo person, you'll probably want to be $25 a month. But and the idea, again, is you have one prompt, you pick the models, and then it gives you 3 stream. I don't know that 5 models makes a lot of sense, but I guess if you were trying to test a specific thing and you wanted 5 model prompts at once, you can do it, right? It's a niche use case for me because I'll say it this way. Have you ever heard of Duck.ai?
Yeah.
Right? It's DuckDuckGo's anonymous implementation, but you can talk to Claude, you can talk to GPT-5 Mini, you can talk to Llama, I think Llama 4 now. There's a couple different big models, and you don't sign in for any reason, right? So it's sort of secure and private from that perspective. It keeps the chat history. If you don't want that, do it in a private browser window. The chat history is gone when you close the window. Okay, great. But you can just have the same prompt and click through 3 different models, see which one you like the answer of, and that's the model you then pursue the rest of the conversation. Like, I think you use this as a quick determiner for a topic relevant, right? Who's better at this topic? So you come up with a representative sample question to ask, get your 3 answers, and then say, okay, Llama's the right, and then you go down that path, right? The other thing I'll tell you, you were talking a little bit about memory and conversation stuff. I think it's relevant to just point out that the LLM itself doesn't have memory today. I know that that's going to change. Now, here's the trick. It doesn't. This is where it's funny. And there's no reason for you to necessarily know this. If you haven't built a bunch of AI-specific apps, it wouldn't make sense. It's the chat that does all the work that you think the LLM's doing. So here's what I mean. You go to ChatGPT, you pick up an old conversation, and you start typing. The web UI sends the whole conversation as the chat, and the LLM goes, oh, we had these, this is all the words she's asking about. It doesn't know you asked about it 3 months ago. It just sees, at this moment, here's the list of things she's giving me. Right? There's a problem here, just a problem to be aware of. There's a thing in AI, all LLMs, called a context window. And it's the size of the conversation, single conversation at a time, right? And everything has to have a limit. It's just, right? If you have a long-running conversation, the first thing you sent, which is your initial prompt that sets the tone of the whole conversation, is the first thing that rolls out of the memory when the context window is exceeded. If you've ever had a conversation go dumb, where it was talking well with you and then suddenly it stops making sense, and you're like, did it get dumb?
Yeah.
It did. It lost the context.
Yeah, it lost the context.
Right.
So
and the way to fix that is to go back to the top, copy it, and paste it at the bottom.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Exactly right.
I just take the, and then I just start it.
You have to.
So it has the reference. Yeah. It's kind of like getting, jotting down notes for yourself sometimes when you forget something. And then
So what's happened is ChatGPT has added memory, and you can put memories in and tell it, but that again is not there's nothing wrong here, but it's the LLM application, the UI, the chat interface. It's not the LLM.
And I think people need to, it's the distinction I think that you're making is because for the layman, it's all the same.
Yeah, it looks like it's all one thing.
The larger source of the, like the model, the large language model, and then everything that's kind of plugged into it that we're feeding off of it. So I think it's the distinction you're making is important. And how do you feel like I think for us to understand that is great, but from a business perspective, I think if it's even more important to understand those distinctions, just because you need to understand especially if you're saying working it into your own business models and knowing how to like leverage AI. If you're trying to do AI driven products, like what is that going to look like, and what are the confines?
You absolutely have to not just comprehend the context window and the implications in an app. And we'll talk for a minute about system prompt versus user prompt, just so people understand that there is a lot of control capability. But separately, you have to understand the model that you're using and what its context details are, right? That there's a couple models out there with 1 million token context. There's a couple models out there with like 50,000 token context. Holy cow, is that a completely different scope from writing an app from 50,000 to 1 million? I don't want to talk about what tokens are. Let's just suggest that they're parts of words. Leave it at that. I mean, the official definition is that if you have a 3-syllable word, it's probably 4 tokens. But that's weird. That's a hard thing for most people. Most people are like, how many syllables are in this word? What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything.
Clap it out.
Right. I don't want to. Yeah, exactly. Grade school. But what I'll say is as an app developer, or even a non-technical business person working in the realm of AI apps, you have to take into account how is this context going to influence the way this app works? What do I need to do? Do I need to keep track of stuff for the user and regurgitate information back into the LLM, even though the user doesn't need to know that? Do I need to tell the user, hey, by the way, you've got to reset, you've got to pull a memory? Like, it depends on the application, obviously, but you have to take it into account every single time. When you type a message to an AI, that's known as a user prompt. And again, we've talked about prompt engineering and making a paragraph. But there's also a system prompt. And the system prompt together with the user prompt are sent to the large language model. And the system prompt as an app developer can be all sorts of instructions, and it can actually help constrain the AI with respect to response. So let's say I write a very simplistic application, just fictitiously for us to talk about, right? And this app's intention is to design POC UIs. That's all you're using it for. You type in a thing, I'd like to see a to-do app mockup, and it spits out a to-do app mockup. And that's all it's trying to do, right? A very simplistic little thing. The system prompt is going to be, you're an app development tool whose job is to build mockup UIs using React. So when the user asks you a question, build them an interface that relates to their question. And that's your system prompt. And the user doesn't know that's there.
They don't have to know. Yeah.
Right. But that's what makes this tool only respond with, UI, a web interface, and not, this is the day George Washington would like doing normal LLM. Because it's still the same model behind. I think that's what people don't get. It's still ChatGPT or Claude or whatever behind the scenes, but it's just being instructed by the system prompt to constrain its result set, right?
Exactly. It's those borders, kind of like when you're going bowling and you put out those like, don't go in the gutter, please. Yeah. I suck at bowling.
And this is a lot of simplistic at the moment, but this is how a lot of AI driven applications started out, is a custom system prompt and delivering some sort of utility or capability. And some of them started as personas, right? I'm an educator assistant, and my job here is to help you build curriculum. So you got a cool system prompt, and now educators can come in and ask questions and ask prompts about things, and then you'll produce a syllabus or whatever, right? And that's not an app that people are going to buy a lot, but you get the idea about the structure, right? Of course you do. I know you know what you're doing. I actually have a question for you in this space.
Yeah.
Do you know or are you either building or using Model Context Protocol servers or MCP servers?
So my husband, there's one of the apps that we're building. I heard him mention it. I'm not the tech guy. I'm the ideation girl.
Well, no worries. Well, I want you to know from the perspective of ideation because I think it's valuable. So let's cover that for a sec. The whole key to the revolution we're sitting on, from the large language model perspective, is the center word language. We've got these tools that can process words, right?
Yeah.
What that really means is, given instruction, a large language model can follow instruction. Why that's valuable? A model context protocol is a particular protocol invented by Anthropic, so the Claude folks.
I love that.
To give large language models tools. So let's talk about simple tools. I create a tool that lets the AI search the internet. Well, we have Google. Yes, I know we have Google. But the AI isn't going to easily make a Google query. The AI wants to talk a certain way. So I make a tool in my MCP server. And that tool is search the internet. But the way that tool works is it defines how to use it with instructions that the LLM can read. Because the LLM does words, right? So every MCP server has one or more tools. You can have 50 tools, 100 tools, or 2 tools. Doesn't matter. You build tools. From a programmer perspective, think of tools like a function. Add 2 numbers. It's a function. If I make a tool that says add 2 numbers, I then have a description that says you can use this tool to add 2 digits together. Specify digit 1 and digit 2 as parameters. I will return the answer. Cool. You understand the instructions, but now so does the LLM.
Okay.
You as the user then prompt in an agentic chat, what's 8 plus 10? And the LLM says the user is asking for me to add 2 numbers. I have a tool that adds 2 numbers. Let me call the tool. The tool wants 2 numbers. Here I go. Boom. And the LLM says 18. And it doesn't do math, right? Large language models don't do math. They do language. But the tool does math. Okay, now, hold. That's the general idea of tool calling, and right?
Got it. So it's an intermediary, so to speak.
Yeah. What it does is it just hands a Swiss Army knife to a large language model that would not have that capability by default. So here's an example. There's MCP servers for Gmail. There's MCP servers for Slack or Teams or OneDrive. You can now have this conversation with the LLM. Find the email at the top of my inbox from Tao and summarize what she's asking me for. Now, I know that sounds stupid because right now you could just go to your email and look at it, but bear with me while I keep building the examples, right? So now the LLM can look at an email. There's privacy and security concerns here. We'll talk about them if we need to, but that's really not the power. The power is I have a tool, but the real capability, because the LLMs do stuff, is I can chain the tools together and do things I couldn't normally do. Here's a simple example. Let's say I have a tool that lets me talk to Google services. MCP server, there's one called Serper. Anyone's listening and cares about it. And it lets you talk to all the Google services that are out there via Google's API. So I can say, use the Maps tool and show me the closest Starbucks to this address, and then use the image tool and show me pictures inside that store. One natural language query, it does the work, and it comes back with, here's the address, here's the link for Maps if you want to use it, and here's pictures inside the store so you can see what it's like. Go into XYZ database, pull out the last 3 months worth of sales information, summarize it, show me the profit and loss, put it in a charter table, and send that to me as a PDF in email. There's a lot of knowledge work that's just going to be done agentically where people are going to prompt their way through some of the tasks they currently do manually.
So where do you see when you're talking about the future of, say, business owners and being able to maybe build in-house or having simplistic tools that fit their particular needs without having to maybe go into, purchase certain, I guess, like merchandising systems on our larger scales, or going into different, larger ERP companies to get their needs met? How do you see that from a business, like a small, medium business perspective, of someone being able to utilize these tools in-house or build something in-house, that's budget friendly, that they can do this kind of stuff?
I actually think that the advent of MCP tools and agentic AI will be a significant leveler for small, medium business versus enterprise. Here's what I mean. All of the current AI commercial platforms will offer agentic, and basically tool use is what it's referred to as, but it means agentic. But there'll be a lot of vendors that offer AI platforms specifically targeting certain either industries or verticals or whatever. That'll shake itself out within the next 2 to 3 years. I'm not too worried about that part. Instead of buying a website as a SaaS product, I'm probably just going to talk to stuff via agents. And that includes MCP servers. I actually have a really interesting quote that talks about the fact that a lot of work in 2025 and 2026 is going to be done by SaaS vendors to agentify their platforms, whether that's produce agents that can do the work that the SaaS UI does, or MCP servers, or both, right? And the quote is from a small dude at a small company called Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, who's literally talking about the fact that they're going to spend the next year and a half writing agentic versus their current SaaS products. And they are the largest SaaS vendor out there.
Yeah.
If Microsoft's moving to agentic and MCP, holy
you want
cow.
To pay attention. Yeah. It's saying something. Yeah.
And so what I see happening is, instead of having to buy a subscription to a big ERP sort of thing, you can use an MCP server to get the same capability, or use an MCP server that lets you access the data or whatever. There's a lot of flavor in there. But the next piece is, if you were to ask right now, you can get the AI to build you an interface. If you could give it the doc or the URL for the MCP server spec, it could write the code to talk to the MCP server itself.
I think that's a great segue into vibe coding.
Go right for it. Go for it.
I don't know if you're like my husband, because like I mentioned, like I'm more on the idea side. I know a bit about tech, right? But I'm a layman compared to, like, I'm not a software engineer. I'm not like you. I'm not like my husband. I'm not a full stack. I don't go into the code. I look over his shoulder and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, but HTML, you get the general concept.
Yeah, I can put a dog on a website,
Sure.
Yeah. So so vibe coding, I've been waiting for the ability to do this for, I think, ever, without even realizing that this is something that I really wanted.
Right. Until it existed, you didn't know what to call it.
Exactly. And when it came along, I was like, great, let me break out all of my notes and everything that I've ever had, any idea, to see if it can actually, be a viable product, So I'm utilizing it a lot for, like, proof of concepts, and being able just to, take that and just send it to my husband and, like, what can you do with it? Do something with it. And that's how we built Binaurality. I was like, conceptualized it within the AI machine, and then I handed it off to him, and he filled in the blanks and did the rest. But it was a highly technical process on his end to push it to completion. So my question for you is, like, when we're talking about businesses being able to do a lot of things in-house, or call in directly into LLMs and such, where do you see the future of individuals being able to ideate with AI and being able to create their own products in-house?
Yeah, let me quickly define vibe coding in case there's listeners who don't know what that means. But real high level, the idea behind vibe coding is you can use some of the existing tools that are out there. Claude Code, Cursor, Windsurf, these tools that let you prompt your way into developing code You do natural language prompting, it writes the code. And it's gotten to the point where it can actually produce an application that will generally run. I have some opinions about the validity of that application long term, but there's no denying the fact that you can prompt your way into a functioning version of an application that you've been thinking about or talking about or want to ideate or want to POC. I have a 30-year history in software development. I wouldn't ship that as a production application for a lot of reasons.
Neither would I.
But there are people who do. The biggest problem that I'll tell you about from the perspective of vibe coding, and then we'll get on to the real question you asked, is that if you aren't prompting it to think about privacy, security, and other stuff, it won't do it by itself. And so if you have a password to a database and the password to that database is the key to your whole application and you don't tell it to secure that in some way, it won't secure it in any way. And, somebody like me or anyone that's even, half the experience I have can just go steal that password and then get all your data. And, if your application was collecting credit card information, you're in trouble because you're making a lot of mistakes. So vibe coding into something complicated like that, not the best plan. However, that being said, there has never been a better tool. The previous tool that anyone would have used is called Figma. It's the standard that everyone would use, right? Show me what you want it to look like. As a developer, I can go build that. Figma in the last couple of years has gotten really, really good at you design it and export it out as code and like hand it to the dev and say, here's 70%. Finish it up, right? And that's neat. The trick is Figma, and I think vibe coding is really useful for, is the UI.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
The user experience is more than 50% of the application. And I don't mean to say that full stack developers aren't real. That's not my intention. But like, if you're writing the front and back end of an application, you're not great at either. You're good at both.
Right. I agree.
I apologize, but you are, right? Yeah. Anyone who's got the brain that is all visual creative probably doesn't have the brain to write the code, just because you have to have a certain mentality to write that code.
You do. I see my husband like toiling away at the keyboard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not generally the modality for a creative person, because they need to see the expression to get their feedback loop to keep going.
Absolutely.
None of this is right or wrong. This is just how it is, right? But what vibe coding does is it puts the power of controlling the user experience in the UI in the hands of the non-developer, because you can just prompt your way into, no, make that blue, make that, like you can just,
exactly.
Right? The thing that's always been difficult for creatives is to get the picture in their head out digitally, because putting it on paper sometimes, is, if you're an artist, is great, and you can scan that, and digital artistry is a thing too, not trying to negate it. People who are really, really good at making UIs, also creatives, cool, but using Figma, using PowerPoint, Photoshop, whatever, right? But that generally didn't give you code. Not always. Now what you're getting with vibe coding is the creatives have the freedom to go mess around and do what I'll refer to as throwaways anytime they need to. And then when you get one and you're like, oh, that's hot, I like that, you actually have code that could be reused, doesn't have to be reused. But let me put it to you this way from a technical perspective. You bring me a vibe-coded React app that looks the way you want, I'm stealing the CSS, and I'm going to write the thing the way I needed to write it. The CSS is the visual elements that I really needed you to do, and you did that.
That's what my husband appreciates, because I used to try to he's not a user experience or user interface developer. He is much more back end, and he's very proficient at that. So when we would always get into like bumping heads when I'd say, okay, I want this. And then he would like, here you go. And I'm like, what is that?
See, look, the AI is a marriage counselor. No, I'm just
Yeah, it
teasing.
is. It really is. And I'm like, what is that? I'd get all Steve Jobs on him. Like the design really matters.
Right.
And so now I'm able to conceptualize it and work back and forth until it's, fine-tuned and tailored. And then I say, here is exactly what I want it to look like. And he goes, got it. And he will take that code and then whatever he needs to utilize, or throw away or fix, but he still has the fundamentals of what it
Correct.
is that I'm trying to do.
Even as simple as, having done this for a long time, even as simple as, oh, that's what you want. Okay, now I understand what you were describing because I can see it and I can build that. Even if I don't touch your code, it doesn't matter because I saw the same vision.
Yeah, it's a blueprint.
That's what's been hard. Right, exactly.
As an architect, if you tell like a builder, a contractor, like, this is what I want a shingled roof and I want it, it's like they're going to not give you exactly what you're envisioning. But if you have the blueprint and they're like, okay, got it, and so it's made things so much more seamless and has saved our marriage, I believe. And being able to just show exactly what I'm talking about.
Let's expand that because I know we're teasing about the save the marriage, but let's talk about it from the perspective of save the relationship of the designer UX person and the developer, right? That relationship can now be smoother. And let's take it out of just you, the couple, and talk about just in the real world from a real development perspective. There's UX designers everywhere working with developers, back end or front end, who have a better capability to communicate stuff. And again, Figma will probably continue to improve its capabilities because, Figma has a pretty good section of the market. Canva also has some. Here's what I see happening. Part of your question was, how do small business owners take advantage of some of this technology? There will probably be a point, this is logical extension of where we are, where you can vibe code an actual functioning app that is a little bit better than where we are today. We're still nascent in that capability.
Right.
What I see are platforms that exist for small business owners or even individuals to take advantage of that allow you to prompt your way into an application that uses some primitives that the platform provides from a MCP tool perspective. Here's a way to query data in your database. Here's a way to get mail. Here's a way to get docs from OneDrive or whatever. Hook all those up at a config level. Once they're there, come over here and prompt yourself into, I want a report that does this, and I want to query this data and have it be a chart and have that run every week. Save. Send me an email when it's done. And that's what knowledge work's going to turn into. Instead of firing up Word, Excel, or whatever, you'll fire up your agentic interface and create a workflow, an automation, a whatever, and share that with your team, kick it off, etc. And then when you're sitting interacting with your employees or interacting with your peers or interacting with customers, and they say, "Can you do X?" and you're going to say, "I think so. I'll get back to you in a day."
Yeah, in a day.
Prompt your way. Right, exactly right.
I used to work in software sales, and and I was an account manager as well, and dealing with customers and that have ask, and you're having to go through all of the channels in your company to understand if it's even like something that's possible. When you can just now plug in certain ask, from any, and that's the thing that I think people also need. My husband is highly technical, but he uses AI. He uses AI across every facet of, and sometimes it doesn't work as well as he'd like it to, but it still expedites the process that he would have otherwise had. So we're building things a lot quicker because of that. So what you're saying about people communicating, even within technical teams, being able to plug in different ask against whatever it is that easily being pre-existing to try to understand how they could be sort of a marriage between those two concepts. I mean, there's so many different ways that AI is even being utilized by highly technical people, and then being, a layman and being, we have different levels of technical expertise, right? Like when someone says, like, I'm not tech, well, you're able to do so many things on your phone. You don't realize how technical you are. So I would say everyone has a different level of technicality, right? Or of technical expertise. But, this is the thing that I'm appreciating about AI is that it's kind of removing a little bit of the I feel like for a long time, software development and building has been kind of gatekeeped.
Even unintentionally, just by nature of what the animal was. Yeah, agreed.
And so AI is kind of allowing a lot of us to be able to kind of take a step into worlds that we weren't privy to because we didn't know how to code, but we had these great ideas or, we didn't know how to like convey the message. For me, it was a lack of resources so many times, and now being able to kind of reduce the amount of resources I need to gather in order to get something done. I think it's removing a lot of those layers and gates that have been in place before. So that's the exciting thing for me.
I agree with your statement. I think I would expand on it and suggest that to an extent, it's the natural progression of where we were and where we wanted to go. So, if you go back to pre-word processing days, if you go back to typewriter, you wanted 2 copies, you got carbon paper and you typed harder. And that sounds stupid, but that's really what happened at one point in time, right? For those of you who don't know, manual typewriters, just old mechanical, non-electric typewriters, literally responded to the force that you pushed on the darn keys.
I have one over here, so I get it.
Underhill, if everyone wants to go research what the heck I'm talking about. Anyway, if you put carbon paper between 2 sheets, you had to hit it harder.
Yeah.
And then you could get it to go through. Okay, great. That you had 2 copies. What about 4? Oh, copy machines, right? And then you had a Xerox technician come in every month to fix the copy or blah, blah, blah.
You just kick it. What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And then we get to, okay, we have a word processor. It's shared. The actual file sitting on the mainframe, you just have a little yellow or green screen, blah, blah, blah. Then we get to, oh, look, there's a Mac, there's a PC, there's Windows. I can see what WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. We get to WordPerfect and all those kind of things. And then eventually we get to Office, and now everyone looks around and goes, what do you mean you can't share a document? What are you talking about? I can do that from my phone.
Yeah.
But same thing, right? Democratizing access is what part of the technology revolution has been about for 30 plus years. In this particular case, the idea that I want to write my own apps, but that's complicated and requires knowledge. It doesn't require as much knowledge right now.
Right. And it's going to change. It's going to keep getting easier for people to make their own applications and platforms.
I actually think what will happen is there'll be an App Store derivative where you go in and prompt what you want and come back in an hour and it just builds the thing for you. You use it and you pay for use. So like you don't buy it. You go, all right, that's a cool app. I want to use it for the next hour. I'm done. Thanks. Here's your $5.
Oh, like disposable.
Yeah. If it's an app that once you develop it, you're like, wait, everybody would want this, and you put it in the App Store. But if it's literally a one-off for that client, charge them what it was worth. Some cases it's the computational time, but right. Like, I don't see why that's not viable. I understand you're an app developer. I'm not trying to get you out of business. I'm trying to get you to think about it.
We've been thinking about it. We were actually at a party the other day, and then someone was like, so you guys are gonna tank soon, right? Like, S out of luck. And I'm like, it's going to be, and then Alec and I and my husband, we looked at each other like, yeah, sure. Eventually we still have a great window where we can do so much, and we're not gatekeepers by far. Like, I'm wanting people to understand what they can do right now, but also understand like there's certain limitations to.
Of course, there always are.
It's going to grow. It's going to get better. But right now, this is what you can do, what there is, and get ahead of the curve. Learn what you learn what you can do with the mechanisms we have now, so that when it further develops, you're already in a better position to do even more. So I'm probably going to be building one of those rocket ships that are sitting behind you after this this talk. There's so many limitations that have been removed, and that's what's the most exciting part about it.
I agree. Well, we certainly had a fun conversation.
I appreciate it.
Any last comments or questions you want to throw out?
So when will AI, do you ever think that there will ever be a true sentient AI? Because I know everyone's talking to, asking that.
Artificial general intelligence, AGI.
Yeah, artificial general intelligence, yeah.
I think it's technologically, it can get, my answer is this. What we need to see first is AI that is writing the next AI. I don't believe on my own that AGI is going to happen because humans built it. I think humans are going to build the tool that builds the AGI.
So the mama AGI.
Yeah, because I actually think that the things necessary to get fully to AGI are probably not easily within the human skill set. And I think an AGI that's adding to its own code base and that is building itself is the way to get there. What that ends up being, I don't know, but I think it's going to build it itself faster.
I think that's a great point. It's kind of like the Big Bang Theory or, versus like the source creator. How is it going to actually come to actualization? Is it going to just be a spark of instance that happens within, an AI model? Or is it going to be a catalyst that causes, a sequence of events that leads to an AGI?
I think what we'll see is small move, incremental progress stuff that gets us there, and it won't necessarily be this, brilliant flash of a nuclear explosion. It will be rapid progress as it goes, but it will be small changes, right? So the idea that we invent a model, that model is wise enough to just think about, you're already doing vibe coding, right? It can create.
Yeah.
You have to prompt it.
You're right.
But if you prompted it well enough and said, hey, create the next version of yourself, used a thinking model, and it went off for a month, right? Just think that through, right? I know it's sci-fi, but conceptually, you can already see it.
Yeah.
And it comes back and it gives you GPT 5.01. If it made a model,
birth to its
right,
baby AI,
it's already progress. And then it just prompt again. And eventually it starts prompting.
Iterations of itself. So it's creating like its own family tree.
Right. Because if you're, just to close out, right? If you're vibe coding and you get in a mistake and you tell the model, hey, there was a mistake here, it goes and fixes it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not going to invent DNA in this context, but just think about it from this perspective. If there was a glitch in the new model's design, why wouldn't the prompt engine be able to go fix? It's the same thing as fixing a bug, and it's all code.
And DNA and code are,
And it doesn't have to be a biologic. It can still be code, but it can look and say, oh, that response isn't right. Let me fix how that works. And then it makes the 5.02.
So gene splicing, but AI.
But what I think is going to happen is because of the speed that these computations take place, difference in time from 5.01 to 5.02, just to make the conversation, could be a millisecond. We don't see 5.01 or 5. We see 5.5.
Yeah.
But it builds for a month, all those iterations underneath, and comes out with, hello, Tao, how are you? And you're like, oh, hang on a minute.
Hi.
All right, well, I think we end there because that'll be scary for everybody.
I know. I think this is where we cut in and I start playing my ukulele.
Ukulele away. All right, it was great talking to you. Thanks so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.